Time for the top 5. And this time, we are doing top 5 favorite one-cost cards in Marvel Snap. I have compiled a list. You have compiled a list. I think we'll go just like we normally do, 5 to 1. We'll see if we have any overlap. I have a very good feeling we both know what number 1 is going to be, unless you are pulling some trickery on me.
Well, because we're going favorite. Because if there were like best one-cost cards, my list would be a little bit different.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my favorite one-cost card and the best are probably the same for me. We'll start with number 5, and I'll go ahead and go first. So number 5, one-cost card favorite for me is Uatu. So
same here.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And Uatu made the list because I thought that as far as the mechanics for this card go, it's great. You know, he's able to see things that the other player is not able to see. You know, it's great to have him in your hand when you open things up. His ability is to be able to see the other locations before they're revealed. And you and I are both big What If fans.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of nice to have this character featured in this game and do very similar to what, you know, he does in the comic book. So as far as one cost goes, I remember when I first got my hands on him, there were a lot of times that I was using him. And when you are playing the game and you are waiting to see if that featured location is going to be in there and where it's going to be, especially if it's going to be something like the raft, that's a great location to have the watcher in your hand. So anyway, that was my number 5. Why'd you have it on your list at number 5?
He is one of the most comic accurate cards, and that ability is really fun and useful. He doesn't always make it into my decks. I'll put him in and I'll be like, nah, I think somebody else can go in there. But in terms of favorite, I love that he's there. I love that he's an option. Part of why I like certain cards is because of their usability. I mean, you know, I'll tell you right now, Squirrel Girl is not my number 1, even though she's my favorite character, because she's not as awesome in Snap as she is, I almost said in real life, but in the comics.
Right.
So yeah, both of those things factor in. So I do like his ability. There's cards I use more often than him, but I like that the Watcher is an option. And especially when I was, experimenting with Legion and stuff, I like to be able to see what was coming in advance. So I knew early on where I was probably going to play Legion.
Mm-hmm. So that's our number 5. Let's see what number 4 is. We already got overlap, which is great. I love this.
My number 4 card, which actually just moved down a little bit on my list as we were getting ready to start this, would have been up higher, gotten a few changes, but still useful, still fun. Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde. She almost made my list. I was looking her over. There was definitely some one-cost cards that did not, I didn't even consider. But she was one of them for sure.
What was it? Was her original ability? Was it one cost 0 power, but then she went up 2 each time?
No, I think she was a 1. She was a 1/2. No, I think she was a 1/2. I believe she was a 1/2, and then got nerfed to a 1.
She's a 1/2 now.
Oh, she's a 1/2 now. So then she would have been a 1/0.
Yeah.
I'd
have 1/0, but she went up 2 each time, and now she's a 1/2, and she goes up 1 each time.
Yeah,
still useful, and still if you combo her with other cards, like Forge or some others, you can still get her up there. And she's great with Collector. If you use Beast to put her back in your hand early, she goes to a 0 cost. She's not quite as powerful as she was, but she's still quite useful, and it's fun to be able to have that card, move it around, and use all those different options. I did use her so much, I got an ink split of her.
Dang.
Once I figured out that it's not very useful to have her if you're planning on playing a 6-cost card at the end, so I've got a couple decks where I don't have 6-cost cards, and when I'm looking for lower cost cards to put in, it's always like, well, hey, Kitty Pryde could be up to a 4, 5, or a 6 by then. So
right.
Let's get her in there.
Yeah, that's a good card. All right, number 4 for me. As I said, this could have possibly been, if you would have talked to me about seven months ago, early on in my Snap playing days, this could have been up there, possibly number 2. But number 4 for me is Quinjet. Okay. Now, I say earlier because Quinjet's ability is you lay that out there. It's 1 cost, I think 2 power, and any card that didn't start in your deck gets decreased by 1. Now, at this time, it is a minimum of 1, but before, it could potentially reduce your cards to 0. And then they decided, well, no, that's just a little too powerful. So at that time, they decided, okay, well, we're going to, the minimum it can do is very similar to Sarah. It can only go to 1, and that's the lowest it can go. But I used to play Quinjet a lot. Especially, I loved playing. You know, it is an essential card if you are in a collector deck where you're trying to get those extra cards from Maria Hill, from Agent 13, from Agent Coulson. They even dropped the cost of. So they dropped the cost of Nick Fury and made that even more tempting to do that. So I like that. And if you got Quinjet out there and you cloning vat is all of a sudden something that is on the table on the playing field or something along those lines that helps you get cards. Moon Girl, that's another one. You know, all of a sudden all your cards cost 1 less. It's a great card. I've had situations where I remember when Onslaught Citadel was out there, you throw Quinjet on there and all of a sudden everything's reduced by 2 that you're getting from. So it was really nice. But yeah, like I said, back in the days when it could get things down to 0, man, was that a powerful card. Still like it though. I still use it a lot.
Yeah. That one didn't make my list, but it could be on there.
Number 3 is a card that it's a favorite. I don't know as far as power goes or versatility or whatever. Everybody knows I like to mess with other people's expectations in this game. As known for my love of Quake,
yeah, you can't say Quake with the Quinjet for your favorite 1-cost card. Just
right.
Quake and a Quin. No.
Quake and a Quinjet. Number 3 is Iceman.
Okay, yeah.
All right. This was one that when Camertage was out there, I had so many retreats with Iceman. Iceman would lay out, and then he hit somebody, and his ability causes a card in the other person's hand to cost 1 more. So he hits it with an ice blast, and now all of a sudden my opponent's 5-cost card now costs 6. While Camertage goes out there and hits 2 cards in their hand and makes them cost 1 extra, and that's a lot. So I enjoyed, basically throwing that big wrinkle into my opponent's hand whenever I could. So Iceman for me at number 3. What do you got?
Well, number 3 for me is a pretty new addition, but it's one that I never quite pulled the trigger on, but it just kept growing on me, and I got her out of a spotlight cache, and she's made it into a lot of my decks. Nebula. Not a card I own. She's a 1-cost, and then after you play her, if your opponent doesn't play anything at that location, her power increases by 2. Now, she's got the Killmonger Glassjaw, that all these cards have, but she can really that can really start to adding 2 each turn, and especially if you play her somewhere like the Space Throne where your opponent can't play many cards, or you land her in a location. If you play early and it turns out to be Sanctum Sanctorum, then you can really start racking up those points. And even if she's not building up points, it's because if you play her in the right spot, your opponent's having to think about, do I want to play somebody there to stop Nebula? So that they have to consider that on their location. So she can really start to add up, and I've really liked her. Never been a character I cared about in the comics. Karen Gillan playing her and doing such a great job in the MCU makes her more interesting there. And they've adopted the MCU look in the comics, because I'm sure there are some diehard old school Nebula fans out there who are outraged, but really I think this has been the most popular version of Nebula for just about everybody. Right. So I don't get why everybody likes that variant where she's floating like she was in Infinity War when she was being tortured. But other than that, it's a card that I thought could be useful, but once I got it, I was surprised how much I started using it. And I actually just scooched her up right past Kitty Pryde.
Wow!
They were originally switched, but she when her points go up, it goes up higher and faster than Kitty, and it's something that your opponent can and does have to account for, whereas they just know Kitty's going to pop up again.
Right. I'm pretty sure I've lost some games due to Nebula, because just like you said, it gets in your head. I need to stop this. I need to stop this train from happening. So I got to throw a card over there. At that point, my opponent's focusing on the other 2 lanes, and they have the freedom to do so. And I've seen Nebula get up to a certain power, and I'm just like, well, I'm going to cross that lane off because I'm not going to mess with it. But anyway, yeah, that's a good pick. It's a good pick for number 3. All right. Let's hear you get to start this one. I think you're number 2.
Well, this was almost my number 1. If it was strictly emotion,
okay,
it would be my number 1. He has won me games. I have kind of stopped counting, but I know I was at least 7 before I stopped counting. M'Baku. I just saw him several times in this previous game. I remember he was one of the series 3 free cards I got, and I was like, I don't know how this guy works, but he is an absolute delight. You're just playing, and sometimes he comes in and wins you the game. Other times he enthusiastically jumps in and piles on. Other times he tilts at windmills and goes charging at Galactus, even though there's nothing he can do. And other times he just pops up in your hand, and you're like, well, I'll take these 2 points somewhere. Particularly like him in a Lockjaw deck. I don't use those as much anymore, but because if he does come up in your hand early, you can toss him back in the deck, and maybe he'll come see you again at the end of the game. So, and like I said, I have won more games with M'Baku than with Carol Danvers.
Wow, that is a great pick.
One of the most fun cards in the game for me. Yeah,
and you also got to mention the fact that even if he doesn't have a spot to go to, he still makes an appearance.
Yeah, no room for M'Baku, and he does that with a word balloon.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Actually, don't know if there's audio.
You know what? I don't know either.
I guess I'm missing some cool audio stuff, but the music gets a little repetitive.
I hear you. M'Baku, I knew that he would be on your list as 1 cost. When I was looking through mine, I was like, yeah, he's going to put M'Baku on there. Now, I've got Yondu.
Oh, yeah. Yondu almost made my list.
Yes. Right in the vein of Iceman, where I am sitting there loving messing with people's decks, trying to screw up their plans. I love Camertagen, Iceman, and then Yondu right after that. You are throwing a wrench right in to whatever mechanics they thought was going to happen that game. Mm-hmm. And I have had so many people retreat. Oh, Yondu, what'd he do? Oh, there went null. And I mean, one of the benefits of having Yondu out there is like in turn 1 is it gives you a peek. It gives you the opportunity to kind of see what you're going to come up against. Who am I facing? You don't really get that with Iceman because you don't see what card gets nailed with the ice and that extra cost. But with Yondu, that card comes up and it shows you. I remember scrolling through Reddit and people griping about the fact, like, we need to have a button where we can see what's discarded because everybody's looking away at the exact time that card pops up. So they're all upset about, oh man, I should have seen what was in there, because you have a great indication of what you're probably going to face in that deck. And now you've got a chance to actually be like, oh, let me strategize a little bit. That affects you. So Yondu is it's a very useful card, and it can sometimes be very disruptive, especially if it takes that one card out that deck is leaning on. So
he almost made my list. I mean, he is very useful. I just Watcher's a little more fun for me, and I don't know. Maybe I don't use him quite as much as I used to. I don't really know why, because I like him for all the reasons you said, but just didn't quite make the cut for me.
I understand. All right, well, let's see. Let's just see what our number 1s are going to be. So I am going to...
I guess we're going to have the same one.
All right. So number 1 for me is going to be Sunspot.
Quicksilver.
It's not Quicksilver. Although I did have quite a bit of use of Quicksilver there for my Shulkanaut deck. But yes.
Oh, no, I'm kidding. Mine's Sunspot, too.
All right. Okay. So...
Nobody likes Quicksilver.
There was a time, I remember when we first started, I first started playing this game. I don't know if you were playing before me. I think you were. And I remember you sent me a message and you were like, do not sleep on Sunspot. I was like, All right. Well, all right. Whatever you say. I didn't know what you were talking about. Dude, honestly, I mean, when you look at every other one cost card out there, this is the one that can save your bacon. This is the one that, like, oh my gosh, I'm so wrapped up in my, trying to get these cards out there, but whatever's in my hand just is not going to allow me to play my energy to its fullest. And therefore, I'll have like 2 energy left. Well, it doesn't go to waste. It goes over and gives Sunspot 2 power. And that's great. And it's a great thing.
He's in almost every deck I have, and often I'll be, if I don't have him in a deck, I'll go, I probably should have put Sunspot in this deck. To give you an idea, I'm not sure how many times I've split him. I did finally get a gold finish. I still don't have an ink split of him, but I'm sitting on 2,572 Sunspot boosters.
Wow. I am at 2,733.
Wow. So
it definitely deserves the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. I mean, there are other cards, especially if you get an assist from the High Evolutionary, that make use of the excess energy. But he was the first, and he's still the best. Yeah. I mean, Sunspot, once you play him, make sure no energy goes to waste.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, man. All right, there it is.
I wish we had some more variants of him. I actually don't have. I just have the versions of the original card. There's the one where he looks like Warlock, and then I know they just put out a new one, and then there's that hot tub one. And like I think I've said it before on here, Sunspot was a character that was just like, oh yeah, he's the guy in the New Mutants who's all black. Not a character that interests me much. And then when Al Ewing gets a hold of him as an Avenger, and in New Avengers, U.S. Avengers, and now in X-Men Red, he's one of the most interesting guys in the Marvel Universe.
All right, man. Well, that's our top 5. We did it. We got everything in here for Marvel Snap. Talked about last season. We talked about this upcoming season. We talked about our top 5. We had a battle right here on this very show, and I mean, we talked about our unlocks. I think I've covered everything. Let's go ahead and get into plugs. So Evan Bevins, give these people an idea of where they can find you and what you've got going on in regards to podcasts and blogs.
A lot of my writing you can find at asterisk51.blogspot.com. That's my blog where I just finished up rereading Stan Lee's Just Imagine for DC. It's interesting. It's a unique thing. Some issues are better than others. There wasn't one of them that wasn't fun though. And so just finished up with his and John Cassidy's Crisis, which I love Stan Lee, and this was an interesting series. But now that that's finished up and football season's getting ready to start, Jesse, I'm getting ready to kick off a read through of NFL Super Pro.
Oh wow, that's right. Football season right around the corner. That's going to be great.
I did before, a while back around the Super Bowl. I did. I read for the first time the special issue that introduced Super Pro, and now thanks to our mutual acquaintance Ed Moore, I have finished the entire 12-issue run of Super Pro in my collection, and I only ever read one issue of it. So now I got 12 issues of NFL superhero action.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Catch me over every once in a while on Magazines and Monsters with Billy D and Ed going through Thor the Eternal Saga.
Right.
Not Thor the Eternal Saga. It is very long, but there's Celestials, Eternals, Deviants, Luchadors, of course. It's just an absolute classic, and it's been a lot of fun reading through that.
Yeah, I just had a chance to finish the latest episode there. I think it was earlier this week. So Monday, the 4th of September, you can hear Mark Radulich and myself discuss Supergirl, Girl Power, I believe is what it's titled. This was I think, mid-2000s take on Supergirl.
Jeff Loeb? Ian Churchill?
Ian Churchill, that's right. Yeah, it's okay. Jeff Loeb and Ian Churchill. So
okay, that was out of Superman and Batman.
Exactly. The first 6 issues, I believe, is what we talk about, because there's some craziness that happens. And a theme, it seems like, even though Mark really was just like, we're going to do 3 DC books, well, each book has Lex Luthor as either a villain in the book or the main villain of the book, or sometimes the main character of the book. And it was good. I mean, the Supergirl, as far as the 3 that we talked about, I think it was the lightest as far as heady plots go, because Supergirl showed up and she just took a kind of a tour of the DC universe.
Yep, I remember that one.
Mark and I had a fun time talking about, I'm sure ChatGPT come up. And I think this was the episode in which Mark was giving me a hard time about providing him some content for his podcast. And I asked ChatGPT how I should respond to him. And I did so on live on air. And it was a lot of fun. But anyway, check that out. That's going to be airing this on Monday, the 4th. And then the following Monday on the 11th of September, Unspoken Issues makes a return, and that is going to be myself. It's just going to be a solo show where I'm discussing the pack-in comic that came with the Sonic the Hedgehog video game that you got with your Genesis.
Oh, very cool.
So, yeah, it's a very, very short comic, but there's some stuff in there that I didn't know. And I will give a quick promo to the AI Rights show that I started here recently. And I should have, by the time this airs, there should be one already in the archive. The second episode where AI Rights, Dark Reckoning, Slayer of the Night. I'm not going to give any more away. I just want you all to tune in, because the premise of that show is I take 2 characters and then have ChatGPT come up with a synopsis of a 6-issue comic for it. And then I read to you what ChatGPT comes up with. And sometimes I provide some bonus content as well. The name of the bonus content, The Spectre, Subpar Subway Inspection. It's going to be a fun time. So, all right, for Evan Bevins, I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.